we all need to know our accurate current location. That's self-acceptance. Accept where you are and accept who you are and then grow from that place. But you also have to do that with your partner as well.
To hold up the mirror and say, like, listen, I think that this is something that you might want to consider working on. Self-accepting where you are, recognizing that there's some things that have been brought into this relationship that you haven't turned and fully accepted yourself. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode number 145. Do you have full self-acceptance in your relationship? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We will see. As always, we want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show and so many others. Self-improvement, mental health, personal growth, self-development, personal development, spreading all of the things, betterment into the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, including this podcast. As always, my love, ladies first, what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention is for our listeners to take away from this hot step podcast episode a little bit of self-awareness around whether or not they have full self-acceptance within their relationship, and most importantly, what the implications are to their relationship if they do not.
So Kevin and I did an episode earlier at Next Level University on self-acceptance versus self-improvement. And you and I had a conversation behind the scenes about our clients and how almost always, and we've done episodes that allude to this in the past, we've talked a little bit about it, almost always there's a partner who is more growth-oriented than the other partner. And there's almost no exception to that rule. Usually it's the partner who deep down has higher self-belief. And Kevin and I earlier, we talked about how if you don't accept who you are, good, bad, ugly, it's very hard to improve. So instead of, there's three sort of camps, so to speak. The first camp is, I hate myself, I don't like myself, I'm insecure, so I'm going to try to go change who I am to try to like myself. The second camp is, I accept myself fully for whatever I am, and I'm not going to improve it because I'm just awesome already. And then the third one is I accept who I am, good, bad, and ugly, strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to acknowledge the strengths, own them, work on them, and I'm going to acknowledge the weaknesses, own them, and work on them. And so Emilia and I have been coaching couples for coming up on 4 years now, and we've seen a ton of times where there's one partner who doesn't want to self-accept the fact that they are the more growth-oriented partner. I know in our relationship, there have been times where you felt that way and vice versa. It was hard for me to self-accept that I'm ahead in business or in finance or in mathematics or these things that I'm ahead in, because that disconnects us, or at least it seems like it does.
Your conditioning tells you that story.
Exactly. Our conditioning tells us the story that it's going to disconnect us. What does that mean? Does that mean I have to be the person who takes care of our finances? Does that mean I have to share hard mirrors? What does that mean? And again, Emilia is amazing in finances. I just want to make that clear. But at the end of the day, we all have different levels of acumen in everything. And whichever partner is ahead is the partner that's going to have the courage to actually lead. And for the partner who is less growth-oriented, they have to self-accept, holy crap, I'm with a partner who has more belief than me, who has a bigger vision for our future than I do. And I need to support that instead of get insecure and allow that insecurity to drive.
Yeah. So if you've been listening to this podcast and you've had the privilege of being on this journey, as we have had the privilege of speaking into your lives.
The love train. On
the love train. Choo choo. We celebrate and honor you, but you've definitely heard the triad of transformation come up multiple times, whether that be on the Conscious Couples podcast, whether that be on Next Level University podcast, or whether that be on Evolve Ventures podcast, right? So this triad of love, of growth, of improvement, of mental health, you've heard of this concept, right? The courage, vulnerability, and humility being 3 fundamental elements that comprise this triad of transformation.
So I took a fire protection course when I was in college. It was actually a fire engineering course, one of the coolest courses ever. And I learned that you need heat, fuel, and oxygen to create fire. You need all 3. So you need a log, that's the fuel. You need oxygen, so you can't smother that thing. And you need heat to light the log on fire. And what I came up with at one point through Emilia and I's work, Kevin and I's work, was, okay, you can't have fire without heat, fuel, and oxygen. I don't believe you can have transformation without humility, courage, and vulnerability. So I just wanted to bring that in because I think that'll make it stick for people.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. And one of the biggest things that we have learned is that pain is at the epicenter of all of that. The human brain struggles to change without some pain. And why that's relevant to this and why I brought this up in the first place is that when it comes to self-acceptance, there's a lot of pain around this. And it's because of the fact that deep down, a lot of us struggle with accepting who we really are, right? That core who we are at the identity level. And that starts very, very young. One of the things that we had mentioned was competence, which is more skills-based, which can be learned over time. And when it comes to self-acceptance, we actually fuse those 2. So the 3 camps that you put in there, I'm observing that there's more of an identity focus as opposed to a competency focus. And the people who struggle to self-accept, yes, those are the people that are fusing both identity with competence.
So in relationships that we've coached, what's an example of a person that struggled to self-accept something that was affecting their relationship?
So a great example that I have coming to mind is one individual in particular. I adore our clients so deeply. And this partner in particular was the person who actually followed in the camp in the less growth oriented than his partner. And he fused his identity with his competency. For example,
unconsciously, right?
Unconsciously, until he came around us and we helped to unveil that, hey, you're not necessarily self-accepting in this arena. And this is why. So when he tried to go and do something, so let's say, for example, he used on a one-on-one that he and I had was a bike. He wasn't really great at riding a bike. And so that was a behavior that he fused into his identity. Because he wasn't great at riding a bike,
maybe he's not that great.
Yeah, he wasn't that great. Yeah. It was evidence to confirm this core belief about himself that he is not effective in the world. And so that sealed a deep-seated wound of I'm not good enough. And so that fusion of identity with competence, what we've done through the work that Relationship Talks coaching has extended into his life was help him understand that, hey, if your low self-belief within yourself, it's because deep down, you never really thought that you were enough, or you really actually fused that you were defective and something that could be an improved and learned skill. If you were to just focus in on you are enough and recognize and then start to build that belief around yourself, you in that self-acceptance of who you are, where you are, would make such a tremendous impact on your relationship. And since then, since he's actually learned one of the skills underneath self-acceptance is self-compassion, having compassion that you didn't know all this when you were little, and that's where all these things start. What that has done to his relationship, he's actually had so much humility as a result.
How does that show up in the relationship? Let's say he wasn't self-accepting that. Let's say he wasn't aware of this core wound at all, and he just never felt super effective.
Yeah.
How is that affecting his relationship?
How that was affecting his relationship and how that was showing up. One in particular example that he had given was the relationship partners went on a trip, and because of his own financial situation not being better than his partner's, he unconsciously sabotaged the trip and didn't really want to go, made alternative plans. Essentially, his ego overswang and gave all these justifiable reasons as to why they shouldn't go, then kind of pulled back and was like, you know what? I kind of thought about it. Let's go. It was just
in reality, he was avoiding not wanting to feel like crap about the fact that he couldn't contribute to the trip. Because the trip was more evidence to the fact that he's not effective, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So through that level of self-acceptance, the work that he's doing now, he's really had some incredible transformations where he is now at a totally different level of self-acceptance via the self-compassion, I would say rabbit hole, but avenue. And what that's doing now is having so much humility looking back in retrospect, being like, holy crap, I had such an impact on my partner. And I didn't realize that she was the one that had the higher self-belief. She was the one that was more growth oriented, and she was practically dragging me up a hill. And like, I'm so grateful at the fact that she had the courage to hold up the mirror and say like, listen, I think that this is something that you might want to consider working on. Self-accepting where you are, recognizing that there's some things that have been brought into this relationship that you haven't turned and fully accepted yourself when it comes to family, relationships, competencies, skill level, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here and talk about the Conscious Couple podcast that I've been listening to for a while now. And I absolutely love, whether you're single, in a relationship, or not, this is the podcast for you. I mean, think about it. If you're not in a relationship, look at it like building a house. If you were going to build a house, wouldn't you get the instructions, figure it out, look it over, start practicing some of the little things so that once you start doing it, it's going to be the best house that you ever built? Or if you're in the house already and there's issues that are going on with it, aren't you going to try and fix them? Or think about it while you're building the house and the base layer, there's some issues there. Don't you want to correct those and fix them before you work on the rest of it? Have a great day, guys. Awesome podcast.
So you call these the three truths: tertiary, secondary, and primary truth. Mm. I've reframed them at NLU as the three circles of the ego. The outer circle is who you want others to believe you are. The next circle in is who you want to believe you are. And the inner circle is who you really are. Mm-hmm. And you can't know where you're going until you know where you really are. So when I got in my car accident at 26, I always use this as an example because all three of those circles collapsed in on themselves, and who I wanted others to believe I was, who I believed I was, and who I really was all came crashing to the same circle. And my goal in life and in my relationship with you, sweetheart, is to have those circles stay the same.
Same.
I don't want Emilia to think I'm better than I really am.
Same.
And I feel like when I was a kid, men in particular, they try to make it seem like they're better than they really are. They embellish or maybe they dim. And so the metaphor that I use is if you have a peer group, a lot of people don't want to be seen as less than, so they don't want to be seen as a failure. So they're just good enough to where their peer group sees them as successful, but not successful enough to where they get ostracized from the group. And so we're all kind of wanting belonging. Mm-hmm. And you've sort of taught me that. You talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how belonging isn't on it and how belonging is the core part of our being. And that's so obvious to me now.
It is on it. It's just from my perspective, I have the audacity to say that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is wrong, and it should.
It's not optimal.
Is actually
not optimal.
It's like the first thing.
At the core.
Yeah.
And so Maslow, we're sorry. Your hierarchy of needs is not optimal. I wouldn't say it's wrong. It's less accurate than it could be.
I would say that humans have evolved beyond that in many cases.
So, well, I think it was always probably inaccurate, but it doesn't matter. Here's the point. Belonging is at the epicenter of our human needs.
Yeah.
And if you have a peer group that is so much more than you, it will compel your central nervous system, mind, body, heart, and soul to want to be more, to fit in. Mm-hmm. If your peer group is less than you or your partner in a certain area, it'll make you want to. So if in finance or mathematics, I'll try to maybe hide certain things with Emilia just to fit in. And when the contrast is shown, it's scary for me. Contrast is scary for us. We want to fit in. We want to belong, especially when it's people we love. Mm-hmm. And so we inflate, we deflate, or we omit. We lie to ourselves, we lie to each other. And what we need to stop doing is that. If I have this goal in my life, and I don't want to make this about me, but for the listeners, we got to go in a sec. I don't want to lie about anything. People say the truth will set you free. Accurate thinking will set you free. And I use this metaphor many times. Emilia and I, we have a Model Y Tesla that it's self-driving pretty much at this point. The Tesla needs an accurate current location, self-acceptance, know where it is and what it is. It needs to know it's not a boat. It needs to know it's not a plane. It needs to know it can't climb mountains. Otherwise, it'll try and then fall off a cliff and blame the world. We all need to know our accurate current location. That's self-acceptance. Accept where you are and accept who you are and then grow from that place. But you also have to do that with your partner as well. And so, yeah, you need a destination location, which is a goal as well. And then you need accurate data on the terrain. If you think it's a road, it's actually a cliff. You're going to drive off a cliff, that kind of thing. I love that metaphor. It's so important. So if you're out there watching or listening to this, ask yourself, do I accept all of who I am? The strengths, the weaknesses that come with them, everything. Do I accept all of who my partner is? Or am I telling myself a story about myself? Am I telling myself a story about my partner? Because that's most likely causing all kinds of distortion.
I do a lot of work in parts in IFS, and what has been so fascinating to me is to recognize we want to believe, to just really endorse what you were saying. We really want to believe that we accept ourselves and our partners and all of their parts. But the truth is we struggle so deeply to do that because very, very few of us have had models to know what that actually looks like. And so to kind of round out this episode, I not only want the listeners to ask themselves, do you fully accept yourself and your relationship? But I also want them to reflect upon who modeled full self-acceptance in their life growing up, because that is a great indicator to recognize where you actually are at.
In your upbringing, so I don't believe my upbringing had any modeling of self-acceptance. And you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that there was a large majority of the opposite.
Yeah.
There was very little of full holistic self-acceptance.
Okay. And I know that I'm not alone in that. And I know you feel that way in many regards as well.
With so many people.
So we'll do more episodes on this. I think self-acceptance plus self-improvement is a lot of what we're doing on this podcast and Evolve Ventures and in Next Level University. But ultimately, reach out to Emilia and myself. What came up for you? Because it's also accepting the strengths. We use an example of someone who felt less than, but I have to accept that I'm a stronger speaker than some of the people I speak with. That needs to be an accepted piece, and I have to own that and love that about myself, which is such a fascinating thing because I think we're insecure about being more than, insecure about being less than, insecure about being different. Yeah. And we have to fully self-accept those differences in order to truly shine in our uniqueness. And I think that's really important for the relationship to flourish. Anything you want to add before we go?
Last closing statement. You had started this, and we started this with, you can't really improve something that which you do not accept wholly or fully. And that is more often the case. So if you're in this boat, you're not alone.
So we say this, people say this all the time. The first step to self-improvement is admittance. It's, I have a drinking problem. Okay, you accept that. Now I'm going to go work on that. Why would you go work on something you don't admit to or you don't accept?
Yeah, and why would you admit to it if you don't even acknowledge it? This is the podcast that helps you acknowledge that.
Emilia said to me one time, I know we got to jump, but Emilia said to me one time, you're the most humble man I've ever met. And I said to I said, sweetheart, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. But I've never, ever identified as humble. And she said, Alan, that's exactly what a humble man would say. And I went, oh, am I humble?
The world has changed since then, y'all.
Literally. And there went my humility. But I had to accept that I am humble because my whole life I've been told I was arrogant. So, maybe I am humble. What does that mean? And if that's true, that means these other people actually might not be humble, and it changed my whole world. So again, we're not making this about us.
It's great.
Think to yourself, what do you need to accept, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, so that you can work on it, not so that you can be less, but so that you can be more of who you really are.
Yeah, and integrate all those parts and make good, make amends, whatever it is. So in closing, the only thing that I want to say to our listeners is join us at our next Relationship Talks event. The link will be in the show notes to register. And this one will actually be this coming Friday. So November 22nd at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When you listen to this episode, when it first launches, it will be this coming Friday. So join us. We will be discussing our top 5 relationship game changers and how to implement them. You've heard of us talk about the gratitude game and a lot of other sneaky, amazing things that have allowed Alan and I's relationship to flourish And we've implemented these. They are tried, true methodologies to really change a relationship in a positive trajectory.
These are some of the building blocks on the bottom of the pyramid that allow you to flourish and climb higher with your partner, metaphorically. Also, if you want relationship talks coaching, we've been coaching couples for 4 years. We've seen patterns over and over and over again. This is the work that we do. We also do individual coaching. I think you have 16 clients. I have 27. This is all we do. So we've got you. We can help you self-accept. We can help you improve not only yourself, but also your relationship. Please book. The link will be in the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening. It's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.